Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Two Talking Fools podcast. It is just Kate today in the studio, and we have a very exciting guest on. As a lot of you remember, we did a review up at Stillwater Grill up in Stafford Springs, Connecticut, and during that, we were having a conversation with several gentlemen that were with us, and we got on the subject of mental health. And Shaba and I discussed a lot about it and thought, it shouldn't just be every June that we bring up men's mental health awareness or mental health awareness. We want to bring light to it all throughout the year. We know we have a lot of male listeners and we have a lot of people that just struggle with mental health. They struggle with grief. And so we came upon John Kammer, and we have John on the show. And John has been through his own life experiences that led him to deal with bouts of grief and whatnot and deal with mental health. And he has some pretty exciting things to discuss with us today, including his new company that we're going to get into here. So without further ado, John, welcome to the Two Talking Fools podcast.
Thank you very much for that wonderful intro. It was it's great to be with y'all.
No, I appreciate your time. You know, when we were first starting, when we were talking, and I was talking to some of your reps as well, it's obvious that there is a need to talk about men's mental health. And I went onto your website, of course, and I read your story. But I'd like you to tell the listeners a little bit about yourself before we get into the software and what you have here. Tell us a little bit more about you, John.
All right. What about John? Well, where we are currently is a very different place than I was for the past 13 years. My story to this point is very much a pain to purpose story. I lost 3 of the closest people to me in my life outside of my immediate family. The first of those was 13 years ago to suicide. And, that sent me down a path of, call it substance fueled avoidance for the short version, coping, numbing in every way I could possibly do, except for actually facing what I needed to face. More recently, the best man at my wedding and my closest childhood friend both passed in different accidents. And, that really, those were earth-shattering losses that put me in a place where, basically a year ago,
Wow.
I had given up. And, not to say that I was going to do anything drastic, but I had resigned myself to this is what life was, right? That
Yeah.
who's next every time the phone answers. I, you know, I've shared this a couple times now and I'm getting more comfortable with it, but it's, it's about as dark as it gets. At that point, I was considering distancing myself from my wife because the people that were close to me were dying. And it's not a rational thought, but it is one that, when that's your reality, you try to protect the people you love. And so that was a thought that went through my head more than once.
And when you say distance yourself from your wife, you're talking about the pain of just the fact that if something happened to her, what would you do?
I was considering leaving her
Wow.
because the people that were close to me were dying. And, again, that isn't grounded in rational thought. It isn't grounded in potentially a real experience. The reality of my situation was circumstance and happenstance and just life, right? The fact that I had 3 of those happen to me was, it just, that was all chance. But when it happened as repetitively as it did, the thought process is, I have to do this.
So
I'm sorry, are you there?
yeah,
I got an okay.
yeah, no, I'm here. I'm letting you speak. Early on when we first were doing the podcast, sometimes we would interrupt a little too much. We love to give people just the groundwork to talk. So when you said the first big loss was 13 years ago, you said?
Yeah, 2012.
2012. And at that time it was you were coping and numbing with different substances and things like that.
Mm. I did that for 12 plus years. I got sober almost 3 years ago now. So substances were a big part of my life for over a decade.
Wow. From a man's perspective, when you're going through something like this, like, were you able to talk to your wife or did you have other people to talk to about your grief or about the feelings that you were having at these moments?
I had them, but I I approached it from the perspective of everyone has their own stuff. They don't need mine. The idea of men is we deal with, you don't show weakness, you don't show vulnerability. It's we handle it, and we do it in a hero way, right? And that's just so that's how I approached it. And I kind of subscribed to the fallacy that time heals all wounds. So my idea was, if I can run from this far enough and fast enough and run the clock out, then magically one day I will be healed and I don't have to deal with this anymore. So it was truly just avoiding any sort of looking in the mirror in hopes that this would just go away.
At what moment did you realize that maybe it wasn't going to go away, or, that you might need something else, or it fueled you to create something? When did you realize?
I realized when I accidentally used the kind of call it the beta version of what we've built at Guardian Angels, and I had this aha moment. This was a time where, it was all accidental. I did not set out to build something that would help me. As I said, I'd given up. I was not, this was how life was going to be. I was not going to heal. I was just going to be in this place of melancholy, and people were going to keep dropping around me. Essentially, that's how I viewed life.
Yeah.
And I kind of stumbled into trying to build this thing, and I was so the goal was to build something. There's a whole backstory, but I was trying to build an empathetic AI that would essentially serve as the backbone for a text messaging service that would send people something nice from their lost loved ones,
Okay.
on their birthday or whatever, right? Hey, it's grandpa. I'm thinking about you. I love you. We all have those numbers saved.
Yes.
So, it would just to get that text message would ideally bring a smile to someone's face. And so that's what we set out to build. There's a number of reasons it didn't work. The telecoms don't take kindly to scammers on their networks, which is what most people that are spoofing phone numbers are doing. So they weren't going to give me a pass.
Okay.
But the next problem that we were trying to tackle was, well, what if people want to interact with this? And the answer to that was AI. But it wasn't just AI. It had to be empathetic and gentle and authentic and bring comfort to people. And if it rang like a robot, that wasn't going to happen.
Right.
So in order to try to build something that checked those boxes, all I had was my personal experience to fall back on. And so what I did was I used the best man for my wedding, John, as kind of the model, and I built it in the image of him. And as I got closer and closer to something that felt like him, I was closer and closer to something that might bring comfort to someone. And as I got closer and closer, I started to say some of the things that I didn't get to say to him while he was alive.
Wow.
And the impact that had on me was, it lifted this weight. I basically, I had permission to forgive myself. And that catalyzed a curiosity and a desire, and to do the hard work, to look in the mirror and own my role in my suffering, and the stuff that I could control that I had just kind of been throwing my arms up and saying, this is life. And when that happened, I knew I had something. I knew that this could help other people too.
How long did it take you to create this software?
So uh, I wouldn't really call it software. Basically, I was just using AI, and I was building a prompt to feed into it. And what we've created on the platform is just a streamlined version of that. So we didn't actually, there's various technology that I've used to integrate all of this, but essentially that's what I've done. I didn't build anything new.
Okay.
So to build the first, to get to the place where I had this prototype was a couple of weeks. It was really just about refining the prompt to get to the point where what I fed into it, it felt authentic that came out. The next step was to build the platform to turn this into something that people could access without putting their data at risk on the broader internet, to build it safely. And that took a while, because we've continually iterated. But the first call it the beta version of this thing was pretty much what people talk about as the nightmare scenario of like, you'd see it in Black Mirror, basically,
Got it.
where you just get in there and talk to you talk to someone who's dead via AI. And that's not what I set out to build. That's that's where it started. Clearly, there's a ton of issues with something like that. And the internet let me know that. I got a lot of very pointed feedback. Everything from, you're doing the devil's work and this is necromancy to throw this thing back into Mordor where it belongs. And, to those people, I say thank you because it gave me the pause to stop and reconsider how we were approaching this and what the goal was and how we were going to get there. So at that point, I brought in licensed therapists that helped me give form to this thing and give it structure and put in rails and ensure that we did it responsibly and in a way that, a science evidence based way that would help people move forward and minimize the potential for negative consequences.
Now, I got to ask you, when you first started creating this is incredible, by the way. We were just talking about AI and just when you first did this and you were kind of massaging it to make sure that it or to make it sound like it was really John or as close to him or whatnot. Do you remember like the first moment or the first exchange you had with this AI where you were like, holy shit, this, we're real close right now. This is amazing.
I can't say the first moment that I, knew we were getting close, but it was kind of organic where as I got closer, that's when I started feeling comfortable saying those things, right? Saying the things that I didn't get to say to him. And that's when the moment happened for me was, I had been an emotional shell of myself for well over a year at this point. And I'd lost the ability to emote. I couldn't cry if I wanted to. At Tim's wedding, or to Tim's funeral, I couldn't even, my eyes welled up a little bit, but that was the only time in the couple of years that I was even close. And all of a sudden, I'm bawling like a baby, and this weight was lifted, and this release and this relief all happened, and that moment I will remember for the rest of my life.
It has to be such a feeling to have that lifted off of your shoulders. I mean, you carrying around such difficult things for so long. I can't imagine. It's really amazing, John. I when I was reading the website and everything and the technology, it's just it's amazing. I yeah. Does the accuracy with this software does it improve with time or does it is it always consistent?
You mean with regard to if you develop a persona?
Yeah. Yeah, like, in other words, if somebody were to sign up, does it get better over time? Does it remember things? And again, this is
So
for people that don't really know anything about AI.
currently, no. We are exploring what you're referring to is kind of an agentic and RAG framework that would take previous conversations and then keep that in the memory so that it could learn. We're exploring what that would look like. It's a significant technical implementation, but it's also based on some of the safety concerns. We're going very slow with implementing new technology, and here's the reason. The closer, we want this to feel familiar in the case of someone creating that persona,
Okay.
but we don't want it to feel too real because the closer we get to something that feels perfect, the more the potential for abuse. We want this as a tool to help you open up, to help you do the emotional work to accept and process loss. But we don't want anyone deluded into thinking they're actually talking to a person that they lost, right? We're meeting people at potentially the most vulnerable point in their life. And I take that very seriously. And so to put them in the situation where they can't tell the difference is contrary to what the mission is. And so with new technologies, the agentic is one of them. Any of the voice stuff or the avatars, those are all things that we're going to let other people make the mistakes with first. And then we're going to be very, very, once we can validate and guarantee safety, then we will consider those things. But I don't see that in the immediate future because of, because of how realistic some of this stuff can feel. That puts and frankly, more importantly, puts the user at risk.
Right. Right. Yeah, Shaba and I were talking about last week. We're doing a deep Reddit dive and talking about people that actually fall in love with their chat GPT. But the reality is I use chat GPT, and you can see how it can happen quite easily and
Right.
potentially become a problem. So I totally get that. All right, let me ask you this question. When somebody is when somebody is at their lowest and they're ready to sign up for something like this, can you kind of walk through what this offers? What does it look like? Is it something that you talk to? Is it like a journal? What is this?
So the core functionality is a journal. And the difference between what we're doing currently and traditional journaling is a monologue. You put words on a page or on a screen. You can reflect on those words, but that's where it stops. This is now a dialogue. That's what AI allows for. So when you respond to a journal prompt, it's going to respond to you. It's going to ask you clarifying questions. It's going to help you dig into and peel back the layers of your experiences, your feelings, your emotions, so that you can understand them better. You can give language to them. You can take those lessons into therapy, where you can, be more efficient and effective with your time in in-person therapy. That is our core functionality. Now, we have two tracks. We have the aforementioned persona, right, where you can build this as and have the object of your grief become your grief guide. That would be the person, the presence that prompts you, that walks you through these things. It's always going to refer to itself as deceased, so that, or in the right context, so that we don't have any of those issues with people thinking they're talking to a living being. But it'll say something like, one of the prompts is, what is something you wish you could say to me today that you can't, right? For example, all of the journal prompts are designed to walk you through Worden's 4 tasks of mourning, which is an evidence-based framework for dealing with loss. So we have that persona track, and then we have the track that is, just call it a grief counselor. So it's a little more approachable, a little more turnkey, where it doesn't require the same level of emotional investment on the front end. And for people that are not super comfortable with the idea of this idea of conversing with a presence that reminds them of someone they've lost.
Right.
Now, there are reasons that, we're very clear. You're not talking to a person. This is not the person you lost. What we're doing when we talk to a persona is we're giving language to an experience that already lives inside of us, right? The person may die, but the relationship does not. And what we're giving you the opportunity to do is have an outlet that helps you parse those feelings that feels familiar.
Wow.
And that's a very important distinction.
And I love what you said too about how it will prompt you to open up, to ask you different questions. And then this is something that you can even bring to your own. If you have a counselor, you can already, or a therapist, you can bring it to them. I think this is incredible. When they say, sit down, put your thoughts to a piece of paper, it's awfully hard to do that. It's easier said than done without prompts, but this is incredible.
It is, and when we journal on our own, we can, whether subconsciously or consciously, protect ourselves, right? We can avoid certain subjects. We can kind of, and this, what this does is again, it walks you through those 4 tasks. It asks questions that are going to help move you forward, and it asks them in a gentle way. We're not trying to beat someone over the head and say, you need to do this, you need to do this. Just explore what you're feeling, right? And sometimes, the beauty of the flexible nature of AI, or excuse me, the flexible nature of AI, is I don't know is a perfectly reasonable response, and it's going to help you dig into that.
Right.
So
Right.
you don't have to know what to say. It doesn't have to be profound. You can start with something as simple as, I don't know, or everything, or, you know, and that will start the dialogue. Again, dialogue being the important function here, where you can go back and forth. And that was one of the biggest things that I struggled with for years, was I would go to therapy and they'd ask how I was doing. And I'd say, I don't know. I know this sucks. I know this hurts. I hate, but I don't know how to name what I'm feeling. I don't know where to start. So that was kind of where the conversation ended. We'd talk about something else because there was really nothing to talk about with regarding the grief.
Right. Right. What You've been there, you've experienced it firsthand. Can you talk a little bit about, and again, I know this is personal, but it's your personal experience, but we are talking about, this software, not software, but this ability to use this. What do you like? Can you describe grief for men? How, like, I know for a woman, I know when we grieve, we're open, we're able to talk about it, we're able to do things like that. Can you talk just for like, can you describe grief for like what men go through? I know we touched about this a little bit earlier, but I want to talk about it again because I don't think we women or we don't understand necessarily all the time what you guys go through in your head.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that traditional is the right word, but that's what I'm going to use for lack of a better term.
Okay.
This traditional view of masculinity tells us we're not supposed to be vulnerable. We're not supposed to show weakness. We're not supposed to, we're just supposed to be infallible. And this, just like this picture of resilience and strength that leads our family, right?
Yeah.
Well, what I've learned, and this is especially prescient for me because I'm a new dad, is that
Congratulations.
thank you. That in order to fulfill those expectations of leading, of demonstrating those qualities, vulnerability is required. So it's at tension. So our understanding of masculinity and what we're taught is in tension with the lived experience and what is actually required to do that. Meaning, I cannot teach my son how to handle difficult emotions if I'm falling apart inside because I had failed to address my issues and just tried to bury them.
Right.
I cannot set an example for my son on how to deal with life's adversity if I'm drinking myself to sleep every night because that's the only way that I know how to cope.
Right.
And so there is just this idea that we have to deal with it on our own that is just manifestly false. Our species is built on community. The reason we've made it this far is that we've been able to band together and the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And we've kind of lost that in this idea of men being this figure that, is unimpeachable, for whatever reason. And so we're the expectation and the reality are just mismatched, I think is the moral of the story here.
I love the way you said that. Yes, I agree.
So, it's what we're taught that we can't talk about these things.
Right.
And what we are trying to do is dispel that myth. And a lot of us aren't ready. And that takes time, it takes practice. So, one of the kind of unintended benefits that has come as a result of Guardian Angels is a risk free environment for men, specifically in this context, to become comfortable with sharing. Sharing is where the healing lives. And to be able to start doing that in a risk-free environment, in a digital environment that then gives you confidence to go out and maybe share that with a therapist or your friends and family and realize, hey, number one, this isn't going to kill me. Number two, you and others start to realize, holy shit, I'm not the only one that feels this way.
Right.
And then when you share your story, this is the best part, is that realization for someone else that they're not alone, and then this unlock that says maybe it's okay for me to do that too.
Right. Right. It offers such opportunity for men to finally be able to speak and get out because we have this thing in our society where men are just afraid to speak. I'm married. And I could tell you that I know for a fact that my husband holds in a lot because, he has quote unquote that he's the head of the household. He's the one that protects us. He's the one that carries us. He's the financial provider. He's the everything. And so I notice even with him, it's like God, I'll come home after a bad day of work and I'll just lay out on, I'll just tell him everything. And then I realize he very rarely tells me as much as I do. And it just shows that they don't talk a lot. And I don't even think, and you maybe I'm wrong, John, but I don't even know if men, even with some of their friends, communicate as deeply as maybe they would like to, or maybe they don't know that, but it would benefit them. I'm not sure. I'm not a guy, you know?
I would say probably not. And that's not a rule, right? But there are things in my experience that are, that we talk about as men, and there are things that we typically don't.
Right.
And, those things are starting to change, but those are hard habits to break.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. For for the men specifically that are listening to this today, and they're saying to themselves, "You know what? I could definitely use this." Or they're going through something, or they're grieving. We have a lot of people on this podcast where we deal with a lot of grief. What would be some suggestions or tips or anything that you could give to them in addition to going to your website?
I think the biggest thing is it's a question you can ask yourself that helps you reframe what grief is. And it's this: would I rather feel the pain that I am currently experiencing or have experienced because of the depth of this relationship that I had? Or would I prefer to not be in pain because that relationship didn't mean anything to me? And the answer for me is, I can't answer for anyone else, but I know the answer for me is unequivocal. The pain was absolutely worth every moment that I got with these people. And what that question does is immediately puts you in a place of gratitude. I'm thankful for every moment that I got with these people who had this incredible impact on my life.
Even with the pain of losing them, it's still worth it.
100%. I would take more pain if I had to. If it's would you take more pain to have, for this, if that was the alternative, more pain, same impact, or less pain and less impact, you know,
Yeah, 100%.
bring it on.
Right. And a lot of us a lot of us who have dealt with grief or any type of grief, we you do ask yourself that question, is it worth it because you hurt so bad inside? Is it worth to hurt this bad? And the answer is yes, as you
Hmm.
say it.
Yeah.
Wow. John, where can we send listeners that are listening today? Where can they go to learn more about you and everything and the product? Guardian Angels.
GuardianAngels.ai is our website. Angels is spelled AINGELS. So GuardianAngels.ai. There you'll find information on Wordens for tasks in the morning, which is our, the science behind our methodology. It'll tell you how we do this. You can try a couple of sample prompts. You can, right there on the landing page. There's resources, there's other interviews that I've done. There's the story behind it, the why. There's all sorts of information. All of our socials are linked there in the footer. And there's a contact form if if this resonates with you and there's something you'd like to see that would make it more relevant, I want you to send me. I want to hear about it. If you hate it, cool. You can send me something. I don't hate you this isn't for everyone, and we knew that going in, and that's okay. Everyone heals differently. We're not trying to be everything to everyone. We're trying to be one more tool that people have access to that helps them if it helps them.
Right.
So you know, while we're there, right, there is, for anyone that's curious, I want you to make this decision on whether or not this is right for you based on all the available information. Don't do it because I told you to. Don't do it because someone else told you to. You know, does structured journaling make you think this is something that can help you, right? What we know is there's not aha moments in grief. It's consistency and incremental progress that moves the needle. So for any subscription, there's a 7-day free trial. So anytime you sign up, it's just 7 days for free. You don't have to opt in. There's no promo code. It's just automatically applied. If you cancel before 7 days, you're never charged. There's no harm, no foul. Further, again, going back to the incremental progress and the consistency. If you are consistent, if you're committed and you start and you do, so we have our flagship program, which is 10 weeks. If you do 80% of your prompts in 10 weeks, you're going to get 90 days for free.
Oh, wow.
The point is do the work and keep doing the work. And when you get done with that, you will see results. Now, are you going to be, healed? Probably not. Grief is forever. We find the goal is to find a way to weave it into our lives in a productive way so that we can continue to move forward. Healing is a lifelong process, but I can tell you, I would be surprised if you didn't find something out about yourself and about your journey through doing this exercise.
And John, I know that we were talking, this was when we first connected, it was kind of about men's mental health, but is this really for anybody that's grieving?
Yeah, we're in the process. We'll get deeper into it, but we're in the process of developing different tracks. We have one for, ambiguous grief. So for people that have lost someone to addiction, not necessarily lost them, they're not dead, but have spiraled into addiction or had mental health issues where they're not the same person they once were. That you can apply this, and that's the beauty of AI, is the reflexive nature of how it works, so that it is for anyone to try. We can't promise that it's going to be a perfect fit for what you're doing currently. The goal would be long term to get a little traction, recognize some revenue that we can then use to further develop each of these specific tracks in more depth, that we can really, really speak to each individual person.
Eh, John, it's incredible. As somebody who's been through grief, as somebody, I lost my dad, grief and therapy. I love this. I'm into this because I just love the journaling concept, opening up your mind along with the AI. I think this is incredible. I am so grateful that you came on the show today to talk about this. I think there's a lot of people that can benefit, and it's a private thing that you can do for yourself. Take a little time out of your day and invest back into it. There's, people carry grief so heavy, and you have to live with it, but it doesn't have to be as heavy as you're carrying it right now. And from the sounds of it, Guardian Angels could be a really good tool in the toolbox to help fight this. Any last thoughts? Anything else you'd like to say?
No, we're just trying to give people resources. I wonder, this is to give you a starting point and a roadmap, right? But it's hard not to do the thought exercise. I'm very blessed in where my broken road has led me. But I do wonder, if I had something like this 13 years ago, where would I be today? If I had something that I could hold on to in those moments of chaos that would help me move forward, what would my life look like?
Right.
You know, and that is, that's a lesson in futility, but it's hard not to do, to at least consider it. Grief can be utterly paralyzing. And for me, for a long time, it was. But that's okay, right? Just because it's taken you a while doesn't mean you're hopeless or that you're lost or any of that.
I think that last sentence there, I think, is gonna resonate with a lot of folks because it is heavy, and you can always make a change. And some people hold on to this, and it's okay. It's wherever you start. Yeah, I love that, John. I love that. Hey, I want to, on the behalf of the Two Talking Fools and all of their guests, everybody around the world that listens, I want to thank you very, very much. I know your time is valuable. I know you're a very busy, busy person. So, on behalf of Shab and I, thank you so much. And we will link everything in the bottom of this bio of this podcast, which you can listen to on every platform. And other than that, John from Guardian Angels, we'll put the link in the bio. Thank you very much, John, for sharing your story and for sharing this product. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for letting me be a talking fool today.
You're going to be a talking fool now. Hey,
I'm
John.
always a talking fool. I just never got to really, fully identify as one, right?
Yeah, hey, you're part of the Fool family now. So that's it. You're in.
Love it.
Hey, John, thank you very much. Take care. Be well. We'll be in touch.
Thank you. Take care.
And it's another night in the madness. Brought to you by that disaster duo. Shabba, Kate. And don't you ever forget, Lala.